Hello and welcome to Piedmont Business Live. I'm your host, Ken Morrison, and today we're talking to Joel Kaczmarek of Sandler Training in High Point. Joel, thanks for being with us.
Ken, you're very welcome. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, first tell me, most people know Sandler Training for sales training, but what other sorts of training does it do?
Oh, goodness. I guess we could start with, there are probably three areas in which we concentrate the most. We're best known for our overall sales training and sales force development. But in addition to that, we also do customer service, customer care training for customer service teams. And we also work directly with managers as well too in helping them to develop the tools and the skills that they need to use to manage salespeople, because what I learned the hard way, I was a sales manager once, and what I learned the hard way is that the competencies that make up for a really excellent salesperson are not the same set of competencies that make up for a good manager. And there's a real true differentiation there. So that's where we spend our time: management, sales, customer care.
Kind of the whole business, from the salesperson up through the people that manage those salespeople.
Yeah, yeah. It's what I refer to as the revenue production process. You know, companies that produce things and manufacture things oftentimes don't look at the sales piece and the customer service piece as a revenue production process. So that's kind of where I try to compare and contrast and bring that to the fore, is to say, what you're doing in manufacturing, are you also doing in sales?
Good.
Okay.
Good. Well, there are plenty of companies out there that offer training in sales, but what makes Sandler different?
Well, the way our clients have laid it out to us, if you just kind of go back years and years and years and years ago, maybe 50 years ago, 40, David Sandler himself wrote a book, and it was called "You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar."
Makes sense.
Now, we lovingly refer to that as the bike book, okay? So we're shorthand from here on out, the bike book. But the point is that if you go to a seminar, what you're getting is just standing in front of the fire hose to get a drink of water. And you may get that boost that particular day, and it may last for maybe 3, 4, 5 days. But what we know through science and psychology is that over time, what you learned, if you don't continue to apply, you will lose. And so seminars typically do not do an effective job of training people. They do a good job of sharing knowledge and information, but when it comes to training, what makes the difference there is repetition and reinforcement. And based on what we hear from our clients, that is the biggest difference between who we are and what we do in some of the other programs and some of the other seminars that they've been to, is that you know, you just can't go to the gym one day and go, okay, I'm fixed.
Right.
It's a continuous process of improvement. And I think that's our differentiation.
So it's taking that person and not only supplying them with knowledge, but real world experience and also kind of guidance through the process? Yeah.
The way that adults, learning is one thing, okay? So there's knowledge acquisition. It's a model based on an acronym called CASH, K-A-S-H. The first is the knowledge, then the application, then skill, and then habit. So the training model is built around the idea of you come here for training, you get the knowledge, but also here in the room we help people apply what it is that they've learned here to their world, because their world is different. The way, or the products and services you sell are different than the ones that I sell, but applying what it is, these tools that we train people to use, that's the next step in the process. And the more often you apply, and if we can use a professional sports analogy here, okay, the more reps you get in practice at quarterback, the more you're going to be able to develop that skill. And what they're looking for when pro teams work with quarterbacks, or anybody for that matter, is they don't want them to think about it anymore. They want them to just do it automatically, which is habit. So knowledge, application, skill, habit. That's the model on which our program is built.
Good. What's the most common objection that you hear from your prospects? And I'm sure you hear a lot.
Oh, I hear a lot, and you know, having thick skin, first of all, is important. But I think the one thing that we hear the most often is that our business is different. Okay, what do you know about textiles? What do you know about auto parts? What do you know about telecommunications? What do you know about IT? Okay, and the answer to that question when I get asked that is, I don't know a thing. You know more about that than I do. You're the content expert in that world. So the biggest objection that I hear on a fairly regular basis has more to do with, do you have technical knowledge and experience in our field, versus our thinking is sales is a conceptual experience, right, and it's communication between two parties to determine if there is a fit, with the result being either a closed sale or a closed file. That's my definition of the sales process, is the process two people go through to determine whether or not there's a fit. And in my mind, and in our belief and philosophy, there is no difference in that type of interaction from business to business to business to business. So technically, some manufacturer's business may be different than an insurance agent's business, for sure, from a technical perspective.
Right.
But when it comes to selling, it's all about interpersonal skills, communication, bonding and rapport development, and determining whether or not there's a fit. That, in our world, is the common denominator between all those who would say that their businesses are different.
And so what you learn in the sales process, if someone goes to Sandler and they complete the program here, if they end up leaving one industry and go to another, it's easy. Those skills are easily applicable to the new job.
Great point, Ken. Great point. That's the whole piece of this, is the portability. I'm a proponent of, and I wasn't initially, but over the last 11 years that I've been doing this, and I'm in my 12th year here now, what I've come to learn is that anyone who can sell and will sell, okay, the will sell is the crucial piece, can take those portable skills with them to an entirely different company that sells an entirely different line of products and or services. And recently I was working with a client of ours, coaching them through a hiring process, and today we should know the answer on whether this individual is going to get hired or not. But what we were looking for was somebody from outside their industry to bring fresh thinking and fresh thought into their industry. So it wasn't they've got to have experience and background selling our products and services. It was just they've got to have a background and experience selling and being successful at it. That's it. That's the key. It's a great point, portability.
Yeah. What problems do companies incur or experience in sales that they look to you to help fix?
Couple of things. First and foremost, and we break it down into 4 different silos, if you will. There's strategy, structure, staffing, and skills. And strategy kind of forms the it forms the foundation. Strategy is, where are we going? How are we going to get there? Okay, if we don't have a direction, if we don't have a purpose, how are we going to know how successful we are if we don't have a goal that we're working toward? Okay, so the whole piece that's wrapped around strategy is extremely important. The next piece above that is structure. So I always think of structure as what is the framework, the architecture of a company's sales department. Many of the companies that we're working with needed a customer service division in an effort to support their sales team. So structurally, we can help them to build a customer service team within the organization that supports the sales effort. Structure also includes, do we have just direct hunting salespeople? Do we have just basically account service people? Do we have people that are mismatched? Maybe we've got people in customer service that ought to be in sales, and somebody in sales who should be in customer service, and somebody who should be a hunter who's currently involved in account management, which is not, it's growing what you got, but it's not going and getting new. And then so we got strategy, structure, staffing. do we have the right people, the right seats on the bus? Thank you, Jim Collins, right? And then after that is skills development. So the least important aspect is the skills development. So when a company comes to me, typically what I'm hearing from them is, Joel, I'm having trouble hiring salespeople. It seems like everyone I hire flames out and they're unsuccessful. I also hear frustrations wrapped around the concept of our guys only seem to know how to sell on price and not on margin, and we're having a tough time preserving our margins and maintaining the value of our offering. In many other instances, I'm hearing salespeople aren't seeing enough new prospects, aren't out generating enough new business. Those are or closing, okay, closing skills. There are a lot of people that go, oh, you know, Joel, I'm great in front of the prospect, I'm a stud, okay? I'm just not able to close them, which means wink, wink, you're not that great, right. Not that big of a stud. But the biggest one today has been hiring salespeople that will do the work and do what's necessary to be successful in the role. And then the other one is typically having to do with margin preservation at this moment in time. Those are the biggies.
I always hear that hiring salespeople is a pretty big chore, kind of a hassle. What do your clients tell you regarding their failures in that area?
Oh, there's kind of two schools of thought. The one school of thought is what I refer to as the Darwinian school of sales, okay, Darwin, only the fittest survive. Yeah. There are a lot of companies out there who, based on the model, understand and realize, because of the way they hire, that they're going to lose a lot of people. So for every 10 people they hire, 9 will probably leave and go bye-bye and go find their happiness elsewhere. So they're constantly in a state of hiring new salespeople because they're hiring the wrong people initially to begin with.
That's expensive.
So I've been told. And when you take into consideration not just salary, benefits, but the most important thing that is kind of the intangible to all of this is there a ding on the brand as a result of having the wrong people out there calling on your customers? Okay, so from a marketing perspective, what's going on with that? Then there's also the lost opportunity cost as well too. Say for example, there is X number of dollars up available and a salesperson just totally fumbles it because they're not capable of developing that opportunity. That's a loss in revenue and profit to the bottom line for an organization as well too. So we look at lost opportunity costs coupled with lost employment cost, and those add up rather quickly. And some owners fully recognize that the system is broken and it needs to be fixed. But others subscribe to that Darwinian school of sales that says, well, you know, salespeople are a dime a dozen and we just hire them, and if they work, great. If they don't, it's the cost of doing business. Those folks aren't a good fit for me. The ones that want to do it differently and not spend so much time all the time hiring people, but developing their people, that would be a good fit for me.
Gotcha. Well, lots of human resources professionals, they use assessments in their hiring. Do you use assessments, and if so, why?
Okay. Yes, we do. And for a number of reasons. What I have learned, and even as I reflect on my own experience hiring people in the past, we have a tendency as people to trust our gut instincts too often and too much. And I had an HR person, and I attended one of their events, and she said, people, assess, use these tools. And the more I thought about it, and then we began to use it. So the tools that we use are twofold. Number one, we do use a version of the DISC assessment, which is a personality style assessment. All it does is to measure what are your preferences as far as your style is concerned. What are you comfortable with? And there are 4 basic styles of personality: the D, who's highly direct; the I, who's outgoing and influential. An S is a steady relator, kind of a peacemaker sort of person. The high C, that stands for compliant, highly compliant individual, and each of those have their hallmarks. The D is very task-oriented, the I is all about people, the S is all about relationships, and the C is all about rightness and correctness, okay, and precision. They're engineers typically, and CFOs, and those types of people. So the assessment helps us to get an idea of personality style. But a lot of people, Ken, are going out and hiring people that are those highly enthusiastic, outgoing individuals that can go out and represent our products and services. And those typically are the people that have a high need for approval. So when they're brought on board, it's more important for them to be liked by their client than it is for them to get business from their client. Okay? So it's a mismatch of sorts. There is no one personality style that is better than another, nor are any of the personality styles better towards developing somebody as a salesperson. Any of the four styles are perfectly suited towards sales if the behaviors are in alignment, which takes us to the next assessment tool that we use, which is a behavioral assessment. One of my contacts on LinkedIn told me once, she goes, Joel, when people are out looking for a job, they're on their dating behavior. You know, they want to look good, they want you to think highly of them, okay? They'll pick up and clean up after themselves. However, 3 months after the hire, you know, are they leaving wet towels on the floor in the bathroom, or not putting their dirty underwear in the hamper, or maybe they're leaving their dishes outside the dishwasher? All of those bad behaviors? While we were dating, I didn't see any of that. But now that you're living under my roof and we're living as one, kind of suspect about some of the things I'm beginning to see. So the behavioral assessment helps us to determine, are the behaviors in alignment? And there are 33 different behaviors that are identified, and they're split into thirds. You got a top, middle, and bottom 11, and it's the top 11 in sales that contribute the greatest to determining the difference between someone that can and someone that will. And that's why we measure behavior, is to determine can they and will they. So those are the tools that we use, but I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression. Those tools aren't used solely, okay, you pass the assessment, we hire you. Those are tools that are used to help screen applicants very early in the process, like the very first thing. They're screened so that we only spend time with those that have assessed well and show the greatest amount of potential and growth. So we don't rely solely upon them. It's just a tool to help guide the process and to winnow out the crowd, if you will. So we're only spending time with who would appear to be a truly qualified prospect. Okay?
How has the internet changed at all?
Whew, boy, that's a biggie. That is a biggie. I know you're very aware, and you keep up with sales trends yourself as well too, because I know you're a bit of a student of that. But there's a movement afoot that says that the actual salesperson will eventually be replaced by the internet, and I frankly, personally, don't ever see that happening, and for one very good reason. While there is more information available to our prospects than ever before as a result of the internet, oftentimes what we find in our work with clients is that when they self-medicate, they fail.
Right.
And the content experts are out there. The salesperson must be the one person who, and I'm going to use this word, at times will challenge the prospect on their choice of solution. It's like me, if I've got a bad knee or something like that, me trying to fix it myself without going to an orthopede. Me going on WebMD and trying to do a self-diagnosis and fix it myself. I need a professional to do it. So while the internet has armed prospects with the greatest amount of information that they've ever had before, What it does is to offer too many choices. And when too many choices are available, confusion exists. And when there's confusion, people have a tendency to freeze and then nothing gets done. So I still strongly believe that the salesperson, a good salesperson, a professional, someone who's in there and really listening closely to what's being said and done, there's still going to be a role for them. But the reason why people are trying to squeeze salespeople off of the main table, if you will, in the dining hall is because of bad behavior. That's it, plain and simple. They don't want somebody telling them what to do, but they enjoy telling you what to do, right?
And I agree with you. The internet provides us with just an enormous amount of information. Not all of it's good information. And the very good qualified salesperson can help you weed through what is good and what isn't. And I agree with you, the need for a salesperson will never go away.
You and I both come from the school of thought that says, look, if it's not a fit, I'm going to tell you. Because I don't want to waste precious resources and time in a conversation with somebody where it's not a fit, and it's a waste of their time and it's a waste of our time as well too. So if we can quickly determine if there's a fit or potential for match, great. And if I can help you, that's fine. But so often we're getting the phone call today from the fact finder. Okay, the decision maker has actually put the junkyard dog on the case, and they're calling around going, we're looking for information, we're looking for information. In my world, we're pretty customized. So the first words out of their mouth are always, how much does your training cost? I don't know, because I don't know what we got to work with, or what the project might look like, or what your needs are, what the issues are that need to be solved. So they still want to hold you at arm's length. So the internet's just kind of provided this one more concentric ring of defense is what it's done. And misinformation, to your point, as well too.
What about social media? What role is that playing in the sales world?
Good question. For me, social media is a marketing tool. For those that misuse it, they try to sell using social media as opposed to market. Marketing is creating awareness for who you are, your products and services. You know, sales, again, is that process we go through to determine whether or not there's a fit. You cannot sell like that using social. Okay, you can create awareness, and you know, I post pretty often myself on LinkedIn as often as possible to kind of get stuff out there and create visibility and awareness for who I am. But too many people that I've come across abuse social. I get any number of messages in my inbox on a daily basis going, you know, I'm selling to you. You know, delete. Okay, I don't believe that's the place. It's the place to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee and see if it makes any sense for us to talk more. But I don't see social media being used to sell. In a B2B situation, B2C, now there are companies and organizations out there who maintain LinkedIn page, as well they should, okay, so they can create awareness. B2C people using Facebook, although I understand Facebook's not as effective any longer as it might have been at one time, and there are other ways to use social to boost awareness for who you are and generate traffic via Facebook or any other medium. But when it comes to sales, I just see social media as being a place, it's another marketing tool for me to use to build a story about who I am and what I do. And then it's up to me to take advantage of the awareness that I've created by reaching out to people who may have viewed my profile or maybe have made a remark on one of the articles that I've written. It's up to me to reach back out to them and say, hey, does it make any sense for us to connect? You want to go grab a cup of coffee one morning and talk a little bit about how we might help each other's business? I don't know. That's how I see social being used.
And I think it's an excellent point, because I really enjoy the articles that you put out on a regular basis on LinkedIn.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Those are, they are not, hey, come buy our services. it's good information. It's you sharing your knowledge. And so when I read those, I realize, you know, if I have a need at some point, who comes to mind first? Joel and Sandler Training.
But I'm not acting desperate going, Ken, help me, help me, send me somebody.
Exactly. You are imparting knowledge without an expectation of, all right, now you got to buy from me or anything like that. And I'm like you, I see a lot of people make the mistake of using the social media solely as a means of injecting advertising, and that's a turnoff for a lot of people.
Well, the beautiful thing for me that LinkedIn did this year, I think middle of the year, was added that ability to publish, okay? To be a content provider and to actually publish long form. Now, long form doesn't mean, you know, a 1,500 word diatribe or something like that. I try to keep it. But what I've found successful in my posting is, and I told this to somebody recently, I said, I'm journaling out loud is really what's going on there. Is I'm kind of putting it out there and I'm journaling out loud. I journal on a regular basis, but there are days when I will journal there because I want some level of accountability as well too coming back. I want that feedback back. So I think the more that any of us can do to prove that we're human, we're not perfect, we do make boo-boos, errors, and mistakes, I think that's what people relate to. I believe that's what people relate to.
I agree. Will there be a role for salesperson in the future, or do you see that diminishing at all over time?
No, we had talked a little bit about that earlier on, and I don't ever see that changing. I strongly believe that the most progressive companies and organizations, the ones that are going to be the most disruptive moving forward, are going to be the ones that continue to engage their customers, engage their public, their stakeholders, whatever you want to call them, on a face-to-face, mano-a-mano basis. The companies and organizations that are going to choose to kind of, you know, pull up the drawbridge, close the windows, drop the gate, when you become insular like that, you're not allowing new thought and new thinking to come into your organization. Now, I perfectly understand that any number of businessmen and women who are in sales have abused the privilege. I get it. Perfectly understand that. But in my mind, it's those that are reaching out and having those personal conversations and interactions with each other. Those are the companies that are willing to take the risk, and those will be the organizations that will continue to grow and move forward. But those that withdraw and lock down and don't let any new thinking in, they're going to wither on the vine. Status quo is nothing more than deterioration. Let the weeds grow.
One last question.
Okay.
How did you get into this business?
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Let's go back in time. Like you, I'm a recovering broadcaster, right? You, on one hand, you got a face for radio. Yes, I did in the past. I was involved in TV production back many years ago, but then I got into sales. And I got into broadcast sales a long, long, long time ago, and I was trained in sales in what I refer to as the Nikita Khrushchev School of Sales. Now, a lot of people are not going to know who he is, but he's the former Prime Minister of Russia who back in the 60s stood at the UN, took his shoe off and pounded it on the podium trying to make a point. Well, that's how I was trained in sales, was you go in there and by golly, you take your shoe off, you pound it on the buyer's desk and you tell them what a mistake they're making if they're not buying your products or services, or they're not placing a schedule on your television station. It was very, what's the word, confrontational. It was confrontational selling, okay? So that was the school that I was brought up in. Now, over the course of time, that process started to soften a little bit. And I had attended some training that had been done by the Brooks Group, and Bill Brooks himself, rest his soul, he was involved in sales training for years and years and years and years and years. And I did attend some of the stuff that he had done as well too, but I was like, sales, schmales, I don't need no help. I'm good at what I do already. And I kind of had that lack of humility. But then right around, I lost my job in '96. Ended up going to work at an ad agency, Trone Advertising, and I worked there for about 4.5 years and was doing business development. And business development, just another way of saying, picking up the phone and calling directors of marketing and chief marketing officers and going, hey, I'm Joel, I'm with Trone, we should talk, okay? That was business development. But I came across a consultant in the agency business who was kind of working both sides. On the one hand, he would work with clients and helping a client choose an agency, and then he would switch roles, okay? And he'd go to the other side and he would work with an agency and coaching them on how to win a pitch and acquire new clients. But in the course of that, and his name was Stuart Sanders, okay? Not David Sandler, but Stuart Sanders. And Stuart had this sales model built on what he called agency baseball. And he said, Joel, don't ever walk into an agent or to a prospect with your portfolio under your arm. He said, those are your baby pictures, and nobody wants to see your baby pictures. And for those out in the audience, the portfolio would be, you know, all of the work, all the print work we've done, or maybe some samples of our TV or broadcast. You know, look at our pretty pictures.
Right.
Don't you want to hang these on your refrigerator? Certainly you do, sir, okay? He said, instead, what you've got to go in and find is pain. And I went, like what? And he said, well, you've been invited in for some specific reason. Don't you want to know why? Because if they really were happy with their current agency, why would you be there? So that became the genesis for having pain conversations. Well, why am I here today? What were you hoping we could help you with? I wouldn't be here today if you weren't having issues. What are you having problems with? Well, agency baseball, ultimately, about 2-3 years later, I became familiar with Sandler because working at BizLife magazine at the time, Josh Seibert, who's the franchise owner here, he said to me, he said, you want to be a part of this? And I said, a part of what? So I was doing my due diligence at the time. And as I was doing my due diligence and studying this system that we train people to, it was remarkably similar to what I had heard about when I was in the agency business, this agency baseball model. They were relatively the same, very similar. If I didn't know better, I would have said that Stuart Sanders ripped off David Sandler, but I have no idea, okay? But that's where I first found this. And there was a time in my life where I'd gone through a divorce, a lot of changes were occurring and going on. And one of the hallmarks, and it's a byproduct and it's an unintended consequence of training with us, but one of the things that a lot of our clients share with us is the personal growth. Not just the professional growth, but the personal growth. And I was at that point in my life where I was like, you know what, they're throwing me the life ring right now, I should grab this. So for me, it was a matter of the timing was right, and it was an awesome opportunity for me to do some work on me while at the same time helping others that invited my help to do the very same thing for them. So that was kind of my journey to get here, and I've now been here since '03.
That's great.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yes.
Well, Joel, thanks so much for being with us on Piedmont Business Live today and for sharing with our audience your insights, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you,
I
sir.
appreciate the invitation to do this. Thanks. Glad to help.
And if you want more information about Sandler Training, please visit the website at the bottom of this page and also at the end of this video. Thanks for tuning in to Piedmont Business Live. We'll see you next time.